You've reached Gloria with Farmstead Talk, and I am here today with Colby and Misty of the Max Happy Homestead. Welcome, and thank you for joining me on this interview today.
Thank you for having us.
Sure, no problem. If you would go ahead and tell the audience where they can find you on social media.
We are on Facebook and Instagram, and we also have our very own YouTube page as well.
Okay, very good. And that is at the Max Happy Homestead, no different name on the YouTube?
No, ma'am, that's it.
Okay, very good. So if you can tell me a little bit about where you both were born, where you reside now, and a little bit about your family dynamics.
Again, like she said, we are the Max Happy Homestead. We live in Southwest Mississippi. We were pretty much raised here in this area. We have been on our homestead for about 5 to 6 years. Is that right? 5 to 6 years. We have about 30 so odd acres, but most of that's a pine thicket. We've developed about 7 to 10 of those acres as true homestead, true farming for us. We have 5 children, and we've been happily married since 2006. So it's been a fun journey.
Very nice. So what about the community that you live in? Can you describe that a little bit? What does it look like? What is its population and its culture there?
We're in rural Mississippi. We are in an area that has about 40,000 in the county that we're in. So it's a pretty small county. The little town we live in, it's about 15,000. So it's not a big city by no means, but it's perfect. It's a great little community to live in. We have a church on every corner. So we, of course, live in a Christian community. So we're happy with that. But we really like it. It's in Southwest Mississippi. Again, we were not raised here, but we've pretty much made home here for the last, really, the majority of our life.
On this land that we're in.
That's right.
The land that we're on. We were born and raised in this area, though.
Okay. What type of animals do you have, and what was the learning curve with? Well, first, let's go into what type of animals that you have right now on the farm.
We have cattle, and we basically have cattle for 2 reasons. Provide us meat, and we have milk and cows as well. We also have American guinea hogs, and those will also serve purposes for food for us. We have chickens, and we're basically just collecting eggs now. We're going to be venturing into meat chickens soon. We have not tackled that yet. What am I missing?
And then we have the honeybees.
Oh, and the bees, and our bees.
Apiary, so.
Yeah. When you first started the homestead, how far into your process of homesteading was it before you actually got the animals?
I would say we've had our homestead main goal was gardening, and then from gardening we went to the chickens. We've had chickens for a number of years, probably 5 to 7 years here and at another property that we owned before. So chickens have already been part of our life for a long time. Now us having sustainable chickens and learning to incubate those and make a generation of chickens have been recently in the last year and a half. But so far we've had chickens for the longest. And then we kind of slowly added the rest. I think we were very patient in every additive. We added beef and dairy cows, and then of course we've had our bees for a good long time too. We try to really learn bees. Our last addition would be our hogs. Would that be right? Mm-hmm. Our hogs were our last addition to the farm. We're trying to have a sustainable pork, so we're going to raise this sow and this boar to produce piglets, and so that will hopefully we'll have a sustainable life source there too.
So how did you know how to introduce the animals to the farm? Like, I know it's a big learning curve to start out with each new breed of animal. Did you start with educating yourself and then just do a trial and say, okay, this season we're going to just try cattle this season and just see how it goes? And what did your procedure for that look like?
I think education is very, very important. I know when we were discussing our bees, we love our bees. I was probably the first one to want the bees. He was a little bit more hesitant, but through research and gaining education and knowledge about the bees and their the way everything that works with them was very important to us to learn all of that. So through that education really prompted him to say, this is a good step for us. This is a good move for us. We need to do this.
I think that, and going along with the education, having a mentor. We have a bee mentor still. I feel like we know a good bit about bees. However, you're always learning. So I'm trying to learn, and if I have a question, I can bounce off this guy who owns a monster bee apiary. Also, same way with beef cattle. We had a mentor, and that helped us learn how that goes. Now, one good thing about the world we live in, social media and YouTube, so some of the things that are not known around here, such as having a true homestead dairy, that's something that's not here. We have conventional dairies in our area, but not homestead dairy. So to consume raw milk and learning how to really take care of dairy cows on the homestead, have a family milk cow, we really learn more from just education from either social media or from reading or from YouTube.
That definitely is an asset, having social media and YouTube. Yep. And the wide variety of material that you can find on YouTube is phenomenal. But the reason I ask that is it does take a while to learn. And if you don't have that mentorship, I think that a lot of folks take on a lot too much too fast sometimes, just because out of pure excitement. And so I just think that it's really important for planning. And I like to ask people, how they go about and schedule new animals or plans to their homestead and how they go about doing that. Because like I said, sometimes people take on too much. So regarding your gardens, what type of gardening do you do, and what do you grow, and what type of systems do you use for your growing?
Well, I'll tell you about our gardens, and then Misty can kind of hit on the greenhouse because it's such a big part of our gardening system. We do most of our gardening is straight in dirt. We have about a 10,000 square foot garden that's right close to our house. I would consider that like a cottage garden, to be honest with you. And then we have started a new gardening on the other side that really is going to be kind of more of a market garden. It's about 4,000 square foot. Right now it's growing pumpkins, but our goal for that garden is to be a more sustainable market garden compared to the cottage garden. We use a silage tarp method to where we cover them up when we're not using them. We're trying to do more of a no-till style and doing more of a lasagna method in that garden. So we're trying to really build the microbes in that soil, and the silage tarps plays a huge part of that. Now, when we talk about what's closest to the house, I'll let Misty talk about that because it's really more the greenhouse and the raised beds, and that's kind of her passion. So
yeah, our greenhouse is an addition that we've had for about a year and a half now. And it sits right out of our window that I'm looking out now. It's kind of directly behind our house, and I love it there because in the mornings when I get up, I can run out and check on it, do any type of watering, anything that we need then. But we use the greenhouse. We mostly wanted it for the winter. So there are things that we can grow, that we can store, that we can keep, because our winters are not brutal here. Sometimes it does get under 32. It does get under freezing, but it's not very often here. So with my greenhouse, it provides a protectant mechanism for my plants, but we also use it to early spring. We start several things in the greenhouse before they're transplanted into the garden, and we have found that very beneficial to be able to do that. And when the frost does come, we know that our seeds and our seedlings and our young plants are they're taken care of. So that's been a blessing to be able to have that.
And right next to the greenhouse, we have several raised beds. We have some hugelkultur beds that has done really well. We have a strawberry patch right close with some mint. Misty has an herb garden close, and then of course we have a compost bin right behind that. So we really try to encompass that as more right by the house, close to where if we need to cut lettuces or have strawberries or have our compost mixed, all that's right there between the chickens and also the greenhouse to be able to utilize as well.
What is your
And I think how we were
Go ahead.
I think talking about even going back to the planning, I think it's so important when you're building your homestead to have somewhat of a plan in mind. When we began our journey, I think besides educating ourselves, we always wanted to have a plan for the future. So I think that's also very important when you're building your homestead, is to manage what you have. But if you know you're going to want to add things in the future, to go ahead and start planning those things. And that was when our greenhouse first went up. We knew the plans that we wanted to expand out with the other beds, with the herb gardens and things like that. So that was intentional, and it has been very beneficial for us.
I agree. Greenhouses are very beneficial, but I wanted to ask you, in your climate, do you garden year round in the greenhouse, or does everything come out at the end of the spring?
Last year, our first full year with the greenhouse, but we did keep tomatoes in our greenhouse all year last year.
And our strawberries have done well. We have a group of strawberries in there as well. Misty's got some aloe. Now here, our summers can be brutal. So
the summers are the more brutal than the winters.
And we have a fan that's always circulating, but the greenhouse could get up to about 110, 115. So
120.
The last thing I heard is that you said that the greenhouse can get to be 120 in there. So I know you said you had ventilation. Do you have the type where the plastic rolls up at the bottom so you can get cross ventilation at the bottom?
We don't. What we did is we built a airflow bottom, which is a decking bottom, so it does get good. It gets good moisture from underneath the soil, but also we can water, and it goes right underneath it. It's not a solid bottom floor. Now we don't have the plastic siding. We have plastic tin, so it allows it to hold in the heat a little bit better for the winter. Because ultimately, for us, we can bring things out of the greenhouse and be okay in the summer. But for the winter, we had to make sure we had a good heat source in there. So we do have a little heater. The heater does all it needs to do to make sure the garden is taken care of during the winter time.
Okay. What is the percentage of food that you would say that you grow for your family between the meat animals as well as the vegetables from your garden? What is the percentage?
It's seasonal.
Yeah, for us, and most of the time I'd say 50 to 60%. When it's the times of year like now where your garden is pretty much stopped and you're kind of in that transitional period of waiting on fall to come. There was times in early spring and summer, though, we were eating, 85, 90% of our meal was from our homestead.
Isn't that fabulous?
Now, yes, it is. And now because we have the meat source to where it's not only providing meat, we have the bulls, we have the boar, we have the roosters to keep that meat source going.
Yes.
I believe going forward will be better because, again, a family of 7, meat is a big part of that. And that's one part that's hard to find organic. So if we keep building that meat source to where, 5 years down the road, my goal is to completely be 100%, not having to provide meat for anything outside the farm.
Good for you. Good for you. Tell me about the markets where you sell your meat products, your vegetables. As well as you said that you sell other products, byproducts of your bees. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, we don't actually sell our meat.
You can't sell our meat
No,
here.
that's right. I'm
Right.
sorry. I forgot about that whole system with the meat. But you are able to sell the eggs, you said, with a certification, correct?
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
Right. At a certified market, we do have to have a licensure through the state for that. But from our home, we do not. It's not actually a requirement. But we do use things like the wax from our bees. We make lip balm, diaper rash cream, sunscreen, several other things that require things like beeswax. So we're able to use the beeswax from our very own bees. Soap is a big thing that we make. Off the homestead.
We've got about 300 or 400 bars right now sitting here ready to be sold for Christmas. So it's ways that we can hopefully market ourselves. But we have a market that's in town that is seasonal from spring It runs for about 2 months, and then there's a little fall one that runs closer to Thanksgiving as well. It's a smaller market, but the spring market, it really provided what we were looking for. We do have jobs off our homestead. I do. But what was so amazing about our market this year? It provided really all the feed and all the food that we have to pay for our animals. That market pretty much covered this year. So when we talk about having our milk off our cows, or we have our eggs off our chickens, most of that was paid for by the money we have made off the market, and off some of the things that Misty was talking about. Beeswax around here, that's probably one of the most expensive things to have to buy to put into those products. And that we're selling that for $12 a pound, or either basically making those products of it. So our goal is for permaculture is not only to utilize the honey, which is the main source, but to have the byproducts of the wax and of course the bees itself to make more money and to make more sustainability.
That's fabulous. You guys are doing a phenomenal job.
Thank
Thank you.
Skin salve was another one that I forgot to mention. For minor cuts and scrapes, which also requires beeswax that I make.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about the regulations with selling like at a food market, and what does it mean to have like cottage market products? What does that mean? If you could share with the viewers what that means.
Basically, most states, I would imagine, has some kind of a cottage food law that allows you to sell from your home. But there's usually caps on that. They won't allow you to run, like a quote unquote restaurant or quote unquote baked goods store out of your home, but they allow you to get to a certain point. Mississippi is pretty good about that. That's around the $25,000 mark for Mississippi. So for all the things that we sell, Misty makes a lot of things from her sourdough starter, and she makes a lot of sourdough rolls and breads and cinnamon rolls, things like that are seasonal for holidays. We can pretty much make what we want on those, because adding all that up is one product, so it doesn't really affect us to where we're going to cap out that $25,000. Now, the things that Mississippi probably is a little bit more stricter on versus more states, of course, is dairy. We can't sell any kind of milk products legally to the community. So a lot of those things we make and we utilize for ourselves.
Which is really a negative to our area, because we have so many local friends and family who want us to be their milk supply, but we're unable to do that because of the laws.
And you said that this is specifically a Mississippi law. It's not a USDA or any kind of federal regulation. It's just your state.
Yes, and most states have laws like that. What we're hoping for is Mississippi comes around and maybe, I'm fine with you labeling it, a consumer danger or whatever it may be for raw milk, but I do think it should be able to be sold. In Arkansas, we have some friends up there that's a very good sustainable money source.
It's a great income for them.
So that's one thing I hope Mississippi looks at soon. Meat, you can sell animals, but if we're doing a cow share, a cattle share, or a pork share, or anything like that, we can't sell them as a cottage food provider. We can't sell them a pork chop, but we can sell them a pig that's going to go to slaughter. We have to sell it before it goes to the actual butcher. It has
to be a live animal.
So there's different ways that you can benefit from it, but you have to make sure you're selling as livestock, not as a pasture pork product or a beef cattle product. So.
Okay. Yeah. So they would have to pick up that meat then. Either you would have to pick it up and deliver it after it's been packaged and processed and stamped or whatever.
That's right. It is basically sold before we take it in. So once it goes to the butcher knows that this other person has actually bought this pork to be butchered for them.
They would have to pick it up in their name at that point.
Okay. That's very good information to know. And I know that all states probably have their own rules and regulations.
Right, that's right.
But for people that are first starting and have no idea, that's very good information. Tell me about your bees now. And we touched a little bit about your bees and the bee byproducts, but tell me why you wanted them and what are the benefits of having the bees?
Well, I've always had a really bad sweet tooth. So several years ago, I was really interested in bees for, of course, the benefit of the honey. And after
Twisting my arm because I didn't like honey, and I sure didn't want to mess with bees.
Right.
And she really went forcefully pushing. I learned from that mentor. I called the mentor, just kind of learned about them a little bit, and the more I learned about them, I was intrigued by them. Not really for the honey, but I thought they were just a cool commodity. You have to look at bees as a livestock like anything else. So it allowed us to say, hey, at that time, we didn't develop a huge part. That was one of the first things that we got into. So we were thinking, well, livestock like cattle and things like that will need more room and need fencing. Bees don't need any of that. So for us, we knew that if we invested in these bees, Misty liked the honey. I didn't, but it was just something we could learn and sell the products.
And he has grown to love honey, by the way.
That's right. Now I absolutely love it.
He has acquired a taste for it.
That's right. And we use it. Our goal with honey is, of course, trying to get away from refined sugar and to use honey for just about everything. Now, we are from the southwest part of Mississippi, so Misty cannot do our southern sweet tea with honey. But other than that, we pretty much use honey in our biscuits and our normal baking because it is healthier. And to be honest with you, all our kids like it other than about one, I think. But all the rest of them love it.
We like to eat it with a spoon. It also helps with our allergies.
We use it in just about everything.
Yeah, well, we've replaced pretty much all sugar from when they're in our home, except for the iced sweet tea. And he doesn't like anything sweet in his coffee, so we don't use it for that purpose either. But other than that, that's been very beneficial for our health as well. The cost initially going in can get kind of expensive,
but by far that is probably the easiest way to make money back on your home.
Right, because a lot of people really like to buy honey and they want local honey. Right. And the upkeep is very low. It's very low maintenance. So that it has so many positive things, I feel like, to own and to be beekeepers.
That's right.
I have a question regarding, I know your seasons are a little bit different. I'm in Colorado, and I just have a question about the disease or the syndrome of the collapsed bee syndrome. I think that's what it's called, where the hives just will suddenly die for no reason.
Right.
I can't remember the actual term of it, and I don't know if it's linked to pesticide use. I don't know, but I've heard a lot of bee farmers talk about this. Have you experienced that where you're at?
Well, we've not had the collapsed bee syndrome where the whole hive dies. Now, there's things that you have to look for with bees. Pesticides is a big problem. Insecticides, things like that, especially if you're in areas with a lot of fields, that could be issues. We see bees are because of they feed usually on a 2 to 5 mile radius of your home. Bees come in contact with a lot of things. So when people say they may have organic honey, that's almost impossible because you don't know what your bees are feeding off of.
Correct.
They
so
may
you try
be
to keep
flying
them,
miles
right.
away.
So for us, with bees, you're going to have seasons of absconding where they're just one day they may not be there. They may have just left, not really swarmed, but just left because they've had something in their system. It caused a reaction and they're gone. Like you said, sometimes you have all your bees die. In our case, we had a weak hive and we've lost some due to swarming or wax moth. So there's different things that you'll learn. The beauty of bees, though, is unlike most conventional animals, bees, you need to learn how to split. You need to learn how to catch swarms because the whole time you're going to lose some bees. So then you're not losing your investment. In our bee apiaries, we have 2 bee apiaries. We have 13 hives right now. We actually lost one last week. But to be honest with you, when we started this, we only started with 2 original hives and then got 2 more. So we actually only have about 3 to 4 bought hives that we actually had to invest into. The rest we've learned to split. We've learned to catch swarms. We've learned to do things to grow our bees to now where we're way on the surplus. And that's what I tell anybody getting into bees. Start with 2 because you need to learn them. And you learn from each other because one may be strong, one may be weak. But from there, you grow every spring because ultimately bees are going to want to swarm and bees are going to want to split. So spring gives you the time to learn how to do some of that. And it's trial and error. We did a lot of trial and error, but through that, we've grown our hives.
So how many active hives do you have right now?
We have 13 active hives. We have 2 apiaries. The one right here on our homestead is our biggest apiary. It has 9 hives in it, and that's where we lost that 10th one that we talked about. But we have 4 more at another part of our family farm that has some beef cows on it as well. But we keep some bee houses up there.
How much honey do you actually get per year? How much have you done the statistics on that, or?
This spring, it does change depending on the pollen and nectar flow. This spring, we were able to pull about 20 gallons off I'd say about 7 of those hives. Some of them were smaller hives, so we let them keep their own honey. But I'd say off about 7 or 8, we pulled 20 some odd gallons. Now, we're coming into fall flow, which tends to be a little bit smaller. I feel like we probably get another 10 to 15 gallons at least. We'll pull that probably between HOA and between going to the Stivers homestead, but basically between October 15th to November 1st, we will probably go ahead and pull. We're going to pull, and I would imagine that's going to be another good 10 to 15 gallons. So, like Misty said, people love honey around here. It's something that you can sell, and I don't want to say you can name your price, but here people are willing to pay more for local
honey.
Yeah, that's right. People they trust versus going to a super box store.
What was your influencing factor to start your homestead?
Well, I think for us, it was being sustainable and not having to depend on other people to provide for us. Also, our health was a major. We've never had any health problems, but just in the general public, if you look around, there are so many people sick and fighting diseases and issues that can easily be avoided. So there were several. Those are a few.
And see, our thoughts were, and we know most people in the world live in suburban areas, and a lot of times in urban areas. So where they may not can grow gardens, and because we're needing more food source to feed our world, sometimes we believe that processed foods and GMO foods could cause health issues for us. So our goal, like Misty said, was to be more healthy. I know people need those kind of foods, but for us, we wanted a more organic, natural approach to say, okay, if we're eating these greens naturally from the ground, we know they're in organic soil, we know there's no pesticides, and we know when we're going to eat these raw greens, they're strictly coming from right here at our home with no problems there. Not to say we don't have to buy things from supermarkets or have to go to markets and buy food, but our goal when we do, we want to buy the best quality food that we can. And when we can't, we want to be able to grow it.
Of course. Yeah. How does spirituality or faith factor into your homesteading life?
I would say it is number one. For us, we are Christians. We look at everything in a biblical perspective. We believe in hard work. We believe that God has given us this land that we're on. So we believe that we want to be good stewards of that. We don't believe that sustainability comes from ease. We believe being a hard worker and having stewardship makes a satisfaction that we can only get provided through our spiritual walk with Him. Now, through that, we believe that if we go, and by all means, we can go to the supermarket and buy all our food. We could go to fast food places and eat all our food and probably save money and probably be a lot less stressful. But we believe that if, again, as spiritual beings, that God has provided for us, so then we in turn need to take care of what God's given us, and that's our land. And so we believe
He's also given us the ability to be able to do that as well.
And see, our kids, I mean, you said our 11-year-old, which helps me milk, which helps me do so many chores outside. Other than him, most of our kids have kind of grown up seeing this kind of lifestyle. It's not really a homestead life. It's just more life for them, especially our younger children. They've seen us always have some form of fashion of gardens or cattle or animals. And I think they just think it's life. And that's kind of what we want, is to teach them the value of stewardship and sustainability.
Yeah, and I think it's important to teach them young, that's for sure. What would you say is your biggest struggle on the homestead?
I would say,
I feel like time
Time.
management for
right.
me, and probably for you too, because Colby works outside the home, and I stay home all day with 5 children, and we homeschool 4 of those 5. So there are times where I know I personally feel like there's not enough daylight to get everything done, and probably Colby too, because there are days that, you know, he comes home at 5 or 5:30, sometimes later than that, and we just have to go to work and try every day.
It's difficult to manage all the duties and tasks that need to be done.
And I
Right.
would say not only that, I would say time, but then like we've said, we're trying to do so many things organically and so many things naturally. So when we talk about growing our own seed or growing gardens, you know, our gardens are not going to grow nearly as fast as some huge gardens that most people around here have, because we're not using
the fertilizers
synthetic
that other
synthetic
people,
parts. That's right. So
some people do.
you know, like corn. Corn has been a struggle. That's one of the
Mhm.
vegetables that we struggle growing here, because most here I have GMO corns, and they grow huge, and they're beautiful, and they taste great. But for us, with us
Right.
trying to grow some kind of heirloom or non-GMO corn, it's almost impossible without having any kind of fertilization that's not organic. So, you know, there's things like that that we learn. Okay, we may not can grow this here. We may have to purchase this elsewhere, or we may need to do more of this because it does better here. So I think time management
And
and
learning
learning,
too.
just the knowledge of saying, okay, what works best here may not work best somewhere else. So if
Absolutely.
we can learn different things that works here at the Max, then yes, we hope we can help someone in this zone, but it may not work in Colorado or Michigan.
That's right.
So you know, that's kind of our thing, is like Misty said, it's time, but it's also learning, having good knowledge, and doing good, wise decisions in that a little amount of time that we have.
Right. I feel you. I understand. It's hard for me too. When you're doing organic, it's really difficult because you
Right.
put so much time into picking bugs off your plants and tea tree oil, and just, you know, it can be so much easier just to use a pesticide, but who wants it?
And if
That's
you
right.
miss one hornworm, it wipes out everything
Yeah.
overnight.
That's right.
That
That's
can
right.
be very disheartening as well.
That's right. So we're just about ready to wrap things up. So the last question I have for you is, if you could sum up in one word your experience with homesteading, what would that be?
Satisfaction for me.
Yeah, we always say stewardship, sustainability, and satisfaction would be our 3 key points of homesteading. And I believe that too. I believe what we've tried to do is have a really sustainable life, and that's through having male animals on the farm, or having Misty, doing seeds on the farm year over year. It just helps us to say, hey, we're going to have a sustainable seed or sustainable animal that's going to give us stewardship and satisfaction. So.
Well, thank you folks so much for joining me in this interview today. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you at the conference this year.
Yeah.
So with that, I'm going to say goodbye and thank you once again.
Thank you so very much.